Our gospel lesson this morning is taken from the gospel according to Matthew, the 22nd chapter, beginning at the 15th verse. This is another one of the conversations Jesus has with Jewish leaders after he has arrived in Jerusalem, and once again they have, shall we say, differing views on things. Then the Pharisees went and plotted to entrap him in what he said. So they sent their disciples to him along with the Herodians, saying, "Teacher, we know that you are sincere and teach the way of God in accordance with truth, and show deference to no one. For you do not regard people with partiality. Tell us then what you think. Is it lawful to pay taxes to the emperor or not?" But Jesus, aware of their malice, said, "Why are you putting me to the test, you hypocrites? Show me the coin used for the tax." And they brought him a denarius. Then he said to them, "Whose head is this and whose title?" They said, "The emperor's." Then he said to them, "Give therefore to the emperor the things that are the emperor's, and to God the things that are God's." And when they heard this, they were amazed, and they left him and went away. The gospel of our Lord.
Praise to you, O Christ.
Well, the world is a bit chaotic these days. Life seems kind of wobbly, don't you think? Now, some of us are people who would long for more stability, even though I know there are people who thrive on excitement, change, and diversity, and all things new. And I know that in the church we're supposed to be looking for the new, finding out where the edges are, and where God is out there at work. But I do think that there is, in our faith lives at least, a stable core that helps us in chaotic days and can guide us through some wobbly sections of life's journey. So, just for this morning, I would like for you to imagine a three-legged stool with a top that holds the legs together. Now, this is a metaphorical stool, of course, but one of the original of these metaphorical three-legged stools was found in Thessalonica. In what was now called the 1st century AD, Thessalonica had already been in existence for 365 years, was the capital city of the Roman province of Macedonia. Located on both land and sea travel routes, the city was big and vibrant, full of folks from a wide variety of backgrounds, cultural backgrounds, religious backgrounds. Thessalonica is still in existence today. It's the second largest city in Greece. Some would call it the cultural capital of Greece. But the letter that we have written to these ancient folk, written by the Apostle Paul to a small Christian community in Thessalonica, people that Paul had visited on his second missionary journey, which took him all throughout Asia Minor and into Greece. This congregation's not big. It's probably not rich. It probably felt a bit wobbly sometimes as they faced a wide variety of cultural and religious challenges on all sides. They also were feeling kind of anxious about things, and the goal of Paul's letter was to encourage these friends, trying to give them theological support for their questions of belief and spiritual food for their questions of doubt and struggles about how to live like a Christian in a very large, multicultural, metropolitan area. Sounds not too different from where we are. But even in spite of these folks' concerns and struggles, Paul begins this letter with a big thank you. A thank you to this congregation. And he reminds them that they already have some stability, in fact, a great deal of stability that they need. Faith, hope, and love. Now, Paul likes this Trinity. He uses it again in his first letter to the church in Corinth, which he will write a couple years after this letter to the Thessalonians. You know these verses. And now faith, hope, and love abide, these three, but the greatest of these is love. Later, he'll write to people who live in the province of Galatia, and he reminds them of 9 fruit of the evidences of the Spirit's work in their lives, and love and faithfulness are part of that list of 9. And eventually, when Paul writes to his friend Timothy, he reminds Timothy of gifts that Timothy received when he was baptized, and love is among those. A great deal of unity in Paul's language. In every case, the same Greek word, pistis, for faith. Elpis is the word for hope, and agape, the self-sacrificing love that we see in Jesus Christ, is the word Paul uses for love. But in this Thessalonican correspondence, faith, hope, and love are given in a kind of a unique way. For each one of these is modified in a way that shows some of the qualities of that spiritual gift in a new light, shall we say. Paul says, work of faith. One commentator suggests that it might be called work that stems from faith. The Greek word for work is ergon, from which we get our word energy. So this is a very active, energetic kind of faith. I began to think about, if that were true, how would that play out here in our community? Perhaps we would pray, and we do. And frequent reminders of prayer concerns go out to those in this community. Perhaps we would give food to those who need it without any hope of reward. And so we do. We give food. It goes to Arlington Charities. We never see the people who get it, but we know that that is a need that is real, and our work of faith moves us in that direction. Well, there's a possibility that, a lot of churches really struggle during their interim time. Did y'all know that? Did y'all know that was supposed to be hard? Guess what? People here have, quote, stepped up to the plate. In the transition time between your installed pastors, you will end up with a balanced budget, a pretty well-prepared building, increased commitment to mission and evangelism. Gosh, you even thought about undertaking a capital campaign without the preacher to tell you what to do. Look how that turned out. Christian minister and writer Frederick Buechner says that faith is better understood as a verb than a noun, a process rather than a possession. It's often a journey without a map. Think of that, no GPS. A commitment to going, even though we're not absolutely sure where it is we're going to end up. Well, I think the work of faith connects us to the past when we think of God's faithfulness and how God has been faithful in the past, and points us forward to the future so we can wonder what kind of works of faith will be seen in our future. I think that if Paul were writing to us, he might thank us for our works of faith. Well, then Paul says labor of love. Now, often we don't think of love as a labor. We might prefer love to be kind and gentle, maybe romantic, but easy. But Paul knows that agape love, that self-sacrificing love, that we see in Jesus Christ is not always kind or gentle or easy. It's hard work. Again, Frederick Buechner says that love is better understood as a verb, an act of the will. It requires action. Well, I'm not sure we have time to get into the list of all the ways that we are motivated by love in this Christian community. How many labors of love are done actually willingly in Jesus' name? But I think that is another element for which we might receive some thanksgiving and for which we are thankful. Well, if it is faith that ties us to the past and to the future, and love that guides our actions in the present, then it is certainly hope that again turns our faces forward and guides us into the future. It seems odd in a way that the symbol for hope is often the cross, for the cross is an instrument of death. But we believe that in Jesus' death is where our hope for the future is, for eternal life. And so it is when our hope is steadfast in Jesus, it keeps us steady, no matter how wobbly things are. And hope keeps us optimistic and eager to see what God is doing next. Now, when I read about the city of Thessalonica and how diverse and chaotic and different it is from how the early Christians were trying to live, I find it pretty amazing, but also reassuring that Paul's thanksgiving overflowed to these people, these early faith ancestors who were already exhibiting these gifts in their congregational life. Congregation's not big, it's not rich, probably no one famous was a member. And Christianity wasn't a very old tradition then either. We're barely 20 years past Jesus' death and resurrection. A three-legged stool is actually pretty stable. And these folks, even with their anxieties, were living a pretty stable Christian life because they had those three legs firmly in place. Their work of faith, their labor of love, their steadfastness of their hope. And so, we might think that our three-legged stool is pretty stable. And if the Apostle Paul were writing to us, he might offer thanksgiving to God for us and for our lives. But one more thing. Three legs are not much use if they don't have a top that holds them together. The top, of course, is crucial because if it's not there, the legs are simply lying on the floor. And so in our Christian life, of course, the top that holds us all together is Jesus. It has to be Jesus, of course. Jesus' love for us, Jesus' choosing of us, Jesus' death and resurrection for us, Jesus' love for us. Three-legged stool is only one of many ways that we might think about our faith life. The secure top that holds those legs together. But it's one way. And a long time ago, a congregation of faithful people was commended by the Apostle Paul for their life and for their living in faith and hope and love. So perhaps today and tomorrow, our prayer will be that thanksgiving from God comes also to us, and that we might give thanks to God for these gifts in our life. Amen.